Welcome to DFW Running Talk. I'm Chris Detzel, so let's get started. All right, welcome to another DFW Running Talk. I'm Chris Detzel, and today we have special guest Farrell Hedrick. Farrell, how are you?
I'm doing great, Chris. Thanks for having me. Really excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you. And you told me that you basically have one name, but your parents call you, one is Farrell, and then what's the other?
I'll take either
Farrell.
pronunciation. Yeah,
Yeah. So for those out there, if you Farrell, doesn't matter.
that's right. Both are
All right.
acceptable. I have no preference on my end.
Good. You were just telling me a story for the pre-show. Maybe you should start recording these pre-shows. Fun. But was that you and I didn't meet, but we were both at Boston the same time. We were standing next to each other through this run we were going to do pre the marathon. I was didn't run the marathon. You did.
No, I actually didn't either. I was there spectating.
Man.
That's a. I attempted to spectate, but I had to fly back for work. But I wanted to enjoy the weekend while I was there.
Oh, okay. Yeah. By the way, it was the best Boston Marathon weekend I've had, and I've been to many. I've never run Boston Marathon. My wife's done it several times, and I just go with her. But anyways, you mentioned that we were standing next to each other. You meant to say hi. I was talking to somebody. You were talking to somebody, and we never even got to meet. And we were standing right next to each other. But here we are today, so I'm excited.
Yeah, likewise.
So you have an impressive background in running. You're a coach. You've run several marathons. You're really fast. I love that. And just recently, I think you just took a new job out of kind of the corporate environment to Fleet Feet, to kind of the program director. Is that right? Something like that?
It's like training programs manager.
Training program. Okay. We'll talk about all those things here in a minute. But first, Farrell, I would love to get to know who you are. When did you start running? What kind of got you in the mindset of that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I'd say the start of my running journey is very similar to a lot of individuals. Maybe it might help to give some background on myself in terms
Let's
of
do it.
how I got here. But I feel like I'm one of the few local-ish people to Dallas. I was born and raised in Richardson at Campbell in 75. So I ended up going to Pierce. Logan Sherman
Nice.
was a few years older than me, so we didn't really overlap. Always saw his name on the athletic halls with all of his accolades in cross country and track. So that
Yeah.
was a very well-known name. Didn't actually run cross country or track. Track my freshman year, ended up quitting because I didn't like being yelled at. And then I say all this because I went to LSU for my undergrad and I'd
Yeah.
studied finance there. And as you can imagine, with the football games, the tailgates, the Mardi Gras, like I put on quite a few pounds, to be more specific, like about
Yeah.
40 or 50 or so. And then got into the business world and worked in finance and public accounting and added a little bit more weight. And one day I just kind of woke up and saw myself in the mirror and was just not happy with the way I felt, what I saw. I was 22, 23 at the time, thinking this should be
And how much were you overweight?
I think at that point, it's always hard to tell because like when you start recognizing those patterns and
Yeah.
tracking all the nutrients and your weight loss, you're already a little cognizant coming down. But I think at most it was 50, 55 pounds.
Okay. Quite a bit. Yeah.
Yeah. And eventually I just had enough of it and didn't want to sign up for a gym membership because it was the whole like New Year's resolutions, didn't want to waste money going to a crowded gym. And I didn't also know what I was doing.
Right.
So decided to lace up
None
a
of us
pair of
do.
shoes. Yep. Decided to lace up a pair of shoes to try to run from one end of State Thomas and Uptown to the other. Couldn't make it even a half mile. So that's how it all started. Went from 30 minutes to on the elliptical every day to a 5K, then half marathon, and then my first marathon in 2017, which was the Dallas Marathon. And then 31 marathons later, here we are.
Wow. So wait, you were in your 20s, early 20s, when you realized, hey, look, I'm overweight. I don't like how I'm feeling. And then you started doing some running and things like that. How old are you now?
I'm
Sure.
34. So
Okay.
I started like, when I look at my running, like kind of history or timeline, probably started around 2023. So about 11 years of running.
Okay. So you've been running you and I have been running somewhat similar amount of time, but I'm 50. I ran cross country in high school and did some running and things like that, and then quit for 15, 20 years. I have a similar story. I remember, and I'll just quickly tell it, but it's very similar. So when I was 30, I was probably 25, 30 pounds overweight. I was like, man, my twin brother goes, dude, you need to exercise. I just said, I've got a twin brother that was doing all that. And I did.
Was that tough? Like having a twin brother where it's like you can see a reflection of what you could be or comparison to yourself where you're like, geez, like how's he doing all this? But I'm not at that level.
I think at that time I was more focused on I was going through a divorce and all this stuff, so I didn't really pay attention to him too much. Now we talked a lot and he was more I wouldn't call it inspirational, but focused. And I actually really liked that. And so he was more of a there forms and stuff like that. But I'll tell you this, so I think that it was more positive than anything. And so, yeah, he was I guess you could call it inspirational because of that. And I think the other part was what you mentioned is you run a little bit for every day for 5 days straight. I said, every day I just want to run a mile and I'll allow myself to walk every day except for day 5. So day 5, I would just want to jog the whole mile. And then over time, I kind of like you did 5K, 10K, and then started running more and then just never stopped. And I think that a lot of people do something similar to what you and I did. And I
Mhm.
think that's so interesting that there's so many stories that are kind of like
Yeah.
that. So in 2017, you run your first marathon, but what was before? Like, you were running 5Ks, 10Ks?
Yeah.
How
I know I
to,
sped through that a little too quickly, so my
no, that's okay.
apologies there. There's just so much when I look back, and I actually pulled up I have like a little race log where I track like my half marathons and marathon times and where I've run different states, and it's just really cool to see where I've kind of how long that journey has, because that could be a very long conversation. I'm happy to share it, but yeah, going back to
Share a
before
little
that
bit of
first
it.
game, yeah,
I think it's
going
good.
back to before that first marathon, really got into that running part after the elliptical to build the confidence of,
Mm,
okay, let me lose a little bit of weight, get some endurance. And really the focus was the endurance side, just being able to run a
yeah.
mile or two. I have this 2 mile route through uptown, same pattern or themes you had, where it's just you build little by little, and eventually
Yeah.
there's this level of consistency you develop, and your endurance and your fitness catches up to it. So it was that first year running was Ks initially. And then I switched roles to go from more of an accounting focused type role from internal audit to
Or,
valuations within the same accounting firm. And I mentioned this because I had worked there for 2 years already, moved up to this senior associate role. And at that
okay.
point, you're thinking, as that individual in the typical hierarchy of public accounting, you want to move up or look laterally. So it's either you're working towards being a manager, or you're looking at more corporate roles like being a controller or a manager in accounting. But
Yeah.
for me, I didn't want to pursue that path. So I took a step down, essentially
Mhm.
going back to zero to take more of a finance, like consulting type role and working in valuations. And that part was stressful for me. So it's almost like deja vu with starting public accounting again. I wasn't running as much as I'd like to. I went from running like almost every day to running 4 times a day or 4 times per week to 3 times. All of a sudden
Yeah.
became two. And then
So
slowly
easy
as
to do that.
exactly.
So easy.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say I had the same look in the mirror type moment, and I wouldn't say I gained the weight back,
Mm,
but I can feel something wasn't quite there.
yeah.
And this was a big catalyst because there was a coworker of mine. She had signed up for the Rock and Roll Chicago Half Marathon in 2016, and that
Yeah.
to me was the benchmark in my like running history where I'd say that's when I became a runner.
Yeah.
And I say all that because not only was it the training aspect of it, and I was just well, we can dive into the actual training part of it in a little bit. But when I went through the training for that, it was very much Googled something, just tried to add
Yeah.
one more
A
mile
lot
to
of
the long
people.
run, just essentially raw dog the training. But when we got to race day, I didn't know what to expect. I didn't
Yeah.
know there was going to be aid stations. I didn't know
Yeah.
there was going to be a crowd, music, all these people, and that adrenaline rush. Just seeing the joy
I
from
think I did
not
that
only
one,
all the other
by the
runners,
way.
also seeing like the crowd being these are complete strangers. They
Yeah.
just they were cheering me on, and I just love that energy. And from that moment on, I had plenty to obsess about, and it became a new passion of mine. And
What was
it's
your
such a
first time, half marathon time? I'm interested in that.
first half marathon time was 1 hour 48.
It's
I
not
think the
bad.
goal
I ran a 147 on my first, so that's
absolutely
pretty awesome.
pretty similar.
Yeah, that's interesting. I haven't run the times that you have though. Looking at your times, but you spend a lot of time and effort on some of that. So you get to that and you think, okay, this is it. You get this new job. You went backwards, but then you got into running. A coworker kind of. So what was next?
Funny enough, the normal progression would be to jump into the marathon. Maybe some of your guests would
Maybe,
say the same
maybe
thing,
more
right?
half marathon
But
take.
that was the route I went because after I finished that half, I actually had a fraternity brother training to qualify for the Boston Marathon. So
Okay.
to date ourselves a little bit, back then the fastest standard was a 3:05,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
a lot different than the 2:55 the 18 to 34 group males have to deal with. But digressing a little bit, I remember calling him because he had just run. No, he was doing a training run to get ready for a fall marathon. I remember him telling me he was doing 20 miles, and he did his 20 miles at the same pace I did my half marathon.
Right.
And I was just floored. I called him. I was like, explaining the race and talking about how great it went. I asked him about his run. And like I said, I was just floored to the ground. I was like, how can you run 20 miles at the pace I just ran this half marathon? I did the math. If I doubled my half time, it would have been what, a 3:36, I
Yeah.
believe. That's a far cry from a 3:05. So at that time, I couldn't even fathom
Yeah.
doing a full marathon. So eventually just stuck with the half marathon. I said, hey, this is the great distance.
It's a
I do
great
this.
distance. It's my
Yeah.
favorite, by the way, even today.
It's funny because I feel like I fall in and out of the half marathon. I always thought it was my favorite distance, but I think I tend to be better at more of the longer distance runs. But it's always been a special place in my heart with my story. So I absolutely love the half marathon. But yeah, it was 10 half marathons later. I think I got down to, I want to say 125 before.
Okay.
I had already signed up for the Dallas Marathon, we mid 20 27. I
Yeah.
had just PR'd in San Francisco. I ran a 144. I believe that's when I signed up for Dallas, but my half marathon really progressed downwards to a 125.
I mean, that's quite a bit from doing 2016 to 2017, 11 halves before you did a marathon. So you did a
Mhm.
lot of halves in between that marathon, it sounds like.
Oh yeah, it was, I want to
A
say it was about
lot.
10.
Yeah,
I
10,
just,
whatever.
hey, when you love something, you just keep going after it, right?
Have you noticed that, and you tell me if I'm wrong, like new runners,
Yeah.
and I love it to some degree, but also kind of be careful. When new runners get into whether it's marathon, halves, or whatever, and look, I'm guilty, but they'll do a lot of them. In a year,
Oh,
I
absolutely.
know this guy I talked to a while back. I can see his face. When can I remember his name? But he's from Spain. Anyways, he was like, "Yeah, I ran 6 marathons in my first year." I was like, "Dude, that's way too many."
Was
You
it
know,
Carlos by chance?
Carlos. Yeah, it was Carlos.
I'll say that sounds like something he would do. Although the irony is, I'm sure he'd look at me and say, "You're probably crazier than
Yeah,
I am."
same. I'm sure we'll get into that, but I just think that it's just be careful because look, I get it. You want to do all these marathons and stuff like that, and injury will come your way
And
if
I've
you don't watch it.
Yeah, and I've been someone who's dealt with their fair share of injuries and still a little bit right now. Unfortunately, it's nothing too bad. But yeah, I think I was joking with myself or thinking in my head a second ago as I was telling the story. It's like if I were to coach myself back then, like
Mm.
like if I were to go back in time, be my own coach, I don't think I would coach myself. Like there's no way like I could have dealt with. Someone's like, oh, we're just gonna keep signing up for half marathons. Like you need to either some of these can't be races
Yeah,
or you just need a flat out break because eventually it'll, like you said, will catch up because you simply cannot give an A
uh,
level effort for that
agreed.
many
I do
half
think
marathons.
that half marathons are a little bit more generous, right? Like you could
Mhm.
do more half marathons throughout the year for sure.
Mhm.
6 or 10 half, I think that's fair. But marathons, I don't know, 6 or 7, that's a lot. Maybe
And
I'm
it
wrong,
certainly is.
but
No,
so
absolutely, yeah. I think it's to each person's individual training, but you're certainly, like, right with the half marathon. Even when someone who's an experienced half marathoner and they
yeah,
haven't really made the jump to the marathon or they seldomly do the marathon, what's nice about the half marathon is that it's so much less stress and less training required, where
that's
you
right.
can go out and maybe say, "Hey, I'll do 3, maybe 4 A-race half marathons in a
Yeah,
year," and you can stack up another 6 or however many, but they can just be training runs. Like,
sure.
I was a part of a pacing group with Beast, and I've gone out and done so many cool half marathons with them, and all of them were at, like, 150 to 2 hours,
Yeah,
maybe even
exactly.
as fast as 140. It's like but that's at a controlled pace relative to
Yeah,
my ability, so, in theory, I could do a half marathon every weekend if I really wanted
yeah.
to. I don't want to for obvious reasons, but that's the nice part about that distance is it becomes very, very.
So I agree. And let's go back a little bit. From your first marathon, you talked to this guy, you talked to him a little bit about pace and what he said, and walk us through some of that and then do that marathon.
For my
You're,
marathon for this.
yeah, you remember you were talking to this guy about, hey, there's no way I think I can run a marathon, especially at that pace. And maybe that's what kind of got you was, okay, I'm going to have to train more. I'm going to sign up, but I'm not sure I'm there yet to try to get to a Boston qualifier because at best, you could run at 3:35, and that's seems pretty overwhelming.
Yeah, I probably should have consulted him a little bit more
Mm,
about pace and strategy with the marathon. Again, this is me being foolish and being new to the training, but I essentially applied the same approach I had with the half marathon, where it's like I knew I had to get the long runs done because if I can't run close to the marathon distance, I won't have a chance. That was my mentality. Now, I
Yeah.
didn't run 26 miles as a training run leading up to it, but did the same logic where each long run, I just built it up starting with the half distance. So next week would be 14, next week would be
Yeah.
15, 16. Might take a break in the middle of there, just sprinkled in a few runs. So that was working at the time. The other difficult part of 2017 was at this point, I also switched careers. I went and made the leap from public accounting and worked in investment banking, which I was very happy with the move, especially at the time, like more money, more
Yeah.
opportunities. And I wouldn't change anything in terms of hindsight, but it did really hamper training even worse than before because the hours were much longer. Like a standard week was minimum 50, 60 hours. Weeks can go
Okay.
up as high as 80. Sometimes I'd be coming home at 3 or 4 in the
Ooh.
morning. And I was just fitting in weekly runs when I could, and then Saturday I would just knock out the long runs. But it was more than enough to get to the start line of my first marathon. So I say
Yeah.
all this to yet again have the same first marathon experience that so many people have had, where they were, I don't know if underprepared is the right word. It certainly is, but I don't want to emphasize the training so much, but more of I wasn't aware of how hilly the Dallas Marathon was. I wasn't
Hmm.
aware of how much nutrition I need to take. I wasn't aware of the weather change. So that year, the race started just below 40, I want to say. It was like
Yeah.
38, 39, and it's an 8:30 a.m. start. Sun's out. It's only going to get warmer from there. I
Mhm.
remember one of the guys had his phone and he checked the weather at like mile 16 or 17 and it was already reaching 60. I'm sweating
I don't think that's good for the mental toughness there.
no,
At
not at
mile
all.
16, what's the weather like?
And to your point about pacing, what's funny about all of this is so my half marathon PR was at 125 at that
At the
time.
time? It's pretty good.
And I knew the Boston qualifying mark was 305.
Mm.
So I came out of the gate trying to run that pace. First 3 miles felt great. The next 3 miles, I hit the 10K.
People have done it, but you know what? It's rare.
And I'd also say this too, like my long runs, there's nothing specific in my training that
Yeah.
would have said a 305 was in the cards. I wasn't running 305 pace for any part of the long runs. My long runs were 8:30 to 9:30 minutes per mile, just slugging it out. Which
Yeah.
again, it works, but if you have a time-based goal, that's not always going to necessarily work. So I say all this because as you can imagine, we cleared the halfway mark at like 135. So that
Mm.
puts me at a 310. And I'm thinking in my head, we have a long ways to go. Like this
Exactly.
this seed of doubt has been planted. It's growing. And I remember mile 18 ish. We're at the lake. Actually, I'll
Mhm.
back up a little bit. I can't remember what mile marker we descended into the lake, but I want to say it was like mile 12 or
Mhm.
so. But I could see the lead marathoners or the other marathoners coming back from the up Winstead Hill. And I
Yeah.
remember thinking, oh my gosh, what comes up has or what goes down has to come up. I
Yeah.
got to go through that. But I wouldn't necessarily, I felt unraveled there. Where I did get unraveled was mile 18
Mm.
across the lake near the Arboretum. There's no like obstruction of sight. I don't know what the right terminology is, but you can see clear across the lake, downtown Dallas. And I know
Yeah.
I have to get back there. And it felt so far. And going up Winstead,
You
going,
really killed yourself mentally the whole
oh,
race, it seems like.
it was just getting warm.
Yeah.
All the negative thoughts were creeping in. And I say all this because it felt miserable and it felt awful. But
Yeah.
at the same time, I had no choice. I told myself, we have to keep going. We
Yeah.
signed up for this. We can keep moving the legs. I looked around. Yes, I was getting past, but also there's other people fading too. Like we're all in this together. We're going to get through this. And when we rejoined the half marathoners, that's when it was, all right, we're in survival mode. We'll take it
Mm.
literally 1 mile at a time. So
That's exactly the way to do it.
we're at mile 22. We rejoined. We got company now. We have the crowd. Mile 23. What's a 5K left? That's pretty much the length of the Katy Trail. 2 miles left. I always contextualize the distance based on how far I am.
Yeah.
So 2 miles was my standard like beginner route, and then 1 mile was 4 laps on the track, and that was it. And I crossed the line at 3:21, but I did it the hard way where I ran at 1:35 on the front.
It's not bad. That's a great time for your first marathon.
Oh,
Great
absolutely.
time.
And by
So,
no means was I upset or disappointed. I was ecstatic and over the moon for that
I mean,
time, but
like, how do you not like? You would have been just fine, even if you would have got slower than that. I think because it's your first one, and by that time you're like, I'm done. I'm happy with it. Who cares at that time? But wow, well done. You've overcame a lot of call it adversity, but a lot of negative thinking to get to positive thinking. And
Yeah.
I think the mental toughness is the key and the hard part about the marathon.
Yeah, it's really funny because some of your other guests have mentioned there's so much power when it comes to perception and your thoughts. And Mimi was a really close friend of mine. I'm not even remotely close to even training with her, but she's always been such a great asset to the community and a great friend with so much
Yeah,
great advice. And one of the things that I really appreciate from her that she's mentioned in some other kind of interviews or podcasts or discussions
yeah,
about training is it's okay to be in pain. Just sit there for give yourself a time limit, 30 seconds, 1 minute. Just keep it
yeah,
very short and just almost lie to yourself and say, no, we got this. Boost the stride up a little bit. Try to do whatever you can to stay positive. Because the minute you tell yourself or you really set into those doubts, then that's when your body starts to break down. It says,
yeah.
oh, if cramp hurts, then another kramp's going to show up. And then now you're tired. Now you're fatigued. And then all of a sudden, you're just in shambles. And the reality is, it's not as bad as you think. That's why we train. That's why we do all the things we do to get here, to prepare
Yeah.
ourselves. It's a matter of trusting that training that we did and making sure that we tell ourselves we can get there because so many other people tell us that too.
I love that. And something that kind of makes me think of is I like hearing these stories because people that are trying to become marathoners or want to run more and all of that and think, hey, this is going to be really hard for me to even get to a marathon. And the reality is it is going to be really hard, but it can be done. And we all struggle, especially in the beginning, we all struggle. We can keep it at that. But in the beginning, it's even more of a struggle because we don't know how to fuel, we don't know how to train, we don't know how to do all of these things. And a lot of times when we first do things, we don't think about a coach. We don't think about a race plan or we don't think about our nutrition. We don't do any of that because we just don't know. So the things I always try to encourage people is one is that's why I like having conversations like that with people like you because you struggled in the beginning. You didn't just become a marathoner, you didn't just become a half marathon. You just had to start running and doing it and slowly but surely get to the point to where you can get to it. And then shows that you actually did. You signed up for a 5K the first time, then you signed up for a 10K, then half marathon. And you did several of those and you're like, you know what, I have to do this marathon. So I like the progression of where you've gone and a lot of other people. As we fast forward, and we could talk about some other marathons if you want, but is that to where you are today, you've run, from what I can look at, a 2:47 marathon, a
Mhm.
1:21 half marathon, and you've run what, 30 something, 31
Yeah,
marathons, I guess,
31.
so far?
Yeah, 31 marathons.
So point is like 30 marathons later, 31 marathons later, you've now got better and things like that, and you've went through the training and you've probably tailored your training. Do you want to say anything about nutrition, training, and things like that, and how that's progressed over time? Or
Yeah, nutrition is something that's very interesting because I feel like that's an area I can work on and improving in many different ways. But one of the biggest things for me is to always, I tend to be on the side where I always tend to underperform. I don't know
Mm,
if that's the right word, but like underutilize nutrition because I just don't like carrying a lot of things. That's something I
right,
have to get over, especially the summer months. And I do. I make sure I carry like a handheld water bottle.
yeah,
But one of the big things that even the slots have been doing over the past couple of summers is having a cooler out on long runs or even parking at the track to have like cool rags and cool drinks.
yeah,
And so my mentality on the nutrition side of things is to always at least have the tools you need in case you need them, even if it's a burden to carry all
mhm,
these gels. There's sometimes for me, the biggest thing is just drinking a lot of electrolytes. And when I say a lot of electrolytes, primarily like sodium. I'm a salty sweater. So I make sure I get 1,000 milligrams of sodium right before my run. And
mm,
as I hydrate, I make sure I have the high sodium packets, whether it's LMNT or even BPN or some of these other brands, just the little pouches. So when I refill my water bottle, it's not just with water because that can be an issue
yeah,
sometimes with running. Yes, you need water, but you might actually dilute yourself of nutrients because you're drinking so much water and you're not replacing it with the necessary sodium and other micronutrients. And then on the gels side of things, like I said, it's just even if it's a burden, at least having them in my car before a long run is helpful in case I forget, but also just making sure I carry two or three, even for a confident long run where I'd say, hey, maybe 12 or 13 miles, I don't need one, but just to have one. You never know when you're going to have a bad day. Last week, I had a rough outing for a 10-mile run. It was my first long run out in the summer heat like this in a
mm,
while. So I was glad and fortunate to have a gel just to get some sort of flavor and kind of take my thought off the pain a little bit. But again, those are all little things where it's trial and error. Someone's nutrition plan from somebody else is not going to necessarily work for you. And there's
Yeah.
different ways, but just like with running, you just got to try something and see what works for you.
Yeah, the one thing I would recommend is during a training run is that's your practice, right?
Mhm.
Like you're practicing for the swim race in general. Carry a couple of gels and say, tell yourself, I've got to take these 2 gels or whatever it is so that you can, mile 6, take a gel, mile 10 or 11, I don't know, whatever the miles are, take another gel and just learn from that, see how your body reacts. And even if you don't want to, because during the marathon, you need some gels.
Yeah, absolutely. You
I
think
mean,
about another way I've
half
explained it in
marathon,
the
I take
past.
a couple, try to anyways.
Yeah.
So,
Another way I've explained it in the past to like other people, especially those who aren't runners or new to running, is you think about how many calories you burn in a mile. It can
yeah.
range anywhere from like 80, 90, but let's just use a simple average. Let's call it 100 calories per mile. And in a marathon, there's 26. So you're
Yep.
burning over 2,000 calories in
Mhm.
that event. What's the daily nutrition guide for calories? It's 2,000. That's why people bonk it. You have these fuel stores for 2,000. Think about a car, right? You only have so much gas in the gas tank, and if you only have enough for 20 miles and you don't top up with fuel, car's going to run out of gas. So therefore, your
Yeah.
body's going to run out of gas. Being cognizant and aware of what your personal nutritional needs are very important, and you're not going to figure that out unless you try, experiment, start practicing and being regimented and very intentional about, like you said, practice your long runs as if it's race day. So if a
Yeah.
marathon, you in a 20-mile run, compare that to the marathon where you take a gel every 3 miles. So maybe you might need to carry 5 or 6. And if you end up taking 4, great, but at least you have the 5 or 6 with you to be prepared and practice.
Exactly. Like you can go to a race and do a half marathon as a test as well. Test it on race day ish and do a half marathon and have a goal of taking 2 gels or something. I don't know. Just practice during some of those things so that race day you're as ready as you know how to be and can be. I do think that's important for the marathon is like you said, you run out of your storage of fuel. As we look like you recently, so I kind of want to go back to where you started coaching. When did that happen and what inspired you to kind of think about that? You're certified with the RRCA, all that kind of stuff. Can you walk me through some of that?
Yeah, coincided with the Woodlands Marathon, which I would probably say, especially now, like, without a doubt, is like my breakthrough rate. That's the shining star out of all of
Hmm.
them. It's my PR, and because like also too, I know you've had some other guests like Matt Campbell, which
Yeah.
I think he shared his funny story about our experiences in that race. But it was such a great race to see so many Dallas area people perform
Yeah.
so well, especially at the 250 mark. Like I was under 250, Campbell's under 250. I think Madeline Rouse, Maddie Steyer, they were at that 250 or just under. Kieran Gear was there too, and a
Yeah.
lot of the people. But I say all this because that was one of the best training cycles I had going
Definitely.
into that race with the cool winter months. But during all this, I actually had a friend that I was close with. He's more of a triathlete, and he's at this point had done a couple 70.3 Ironman events. So
Yeah.
very capable and very endurance focused person, but he never had done like a standalone like half marathon before. And he's like, hey, I want to let it rip. And I've seen at this point I had just broken 3 hours too in the
Okay.
fall of 2020. So he saw that. He's like, hey, I saw you qualify for Boston. He's followed my training. We're like I said, we're close friends. Like I know how hard you worked for that. It's like, is there any way you could help me or like give me tips or even coach me? And at that point, I wasn't like a coach by any means. Like, hey, I can help give you advice. He's like, what about like a training plan or kind of work with me week to week? So eventually, we went from just having casual conversations on broader like training structure, like what type of
Hmm.
speed workouts you should do and things like that. And I was just giving him like a weekly plan that I was building out of it in Excel. And I was also, I'll say too, I was also this time coached by Fonz.
Mhm.
Also, he helped me break 3 and this training cycle going into the Woodlands. He was
Fonz
my
is a
coach.
popular dude around
Yeah,
here.
he very much is, and he provided a lot of great training. I will say, like, a lot of my philosophies and thought process when it comes to training
Similar.
stem from my experiences of being coached by him, so I applied a lot of the same logic, and since I was training for the marathon, I wasn't necessarily giving him, like, this friend of mine, a carbon copy of my plan because it just wouldn't make sense, but that was his first, like I said, standalone half marathon. He'd always run, like, 2 hours in a half marathon for a 70.3, and in this guy's first half
Hmm.
marathon, he ran a 1:27, and
Yeah.
I was just, like, blown away because the whole time we were training, it's like, "Hey, we'll pick a 1:30 halftime as a
Yeah.
stretch goal just to have, like, workouts as a benchmark," and he was doing really well in terms of hitting a lot of the workouts. There were some long runs where they got tough, but it's
Yeah.
okay. Like this is one of those things where it's like, hey, your A goal is 130, maybe a B goal is like 132 or something like that, and we just worked it down. If it and have that race strategy of, hey, we'll see how it feels in 3 miles. If it doesn't feel good, you can back it off. But if you're at mile 6 or 7, like just go for it, just keep the legs and see what
Yeah.
happens. And yeah, that to me was like a very eye opening moment. Not only just seeing, not only a success from that first experience, but just seeing the genuine appreciation of not only my help and assistance, but also seeing how all these races that I've done, the 10 marathons, at this point, it was probably like 20 or 30 half marathons.
Yeah.
Some went well, some didn't. And regardless of what the result is, I always walk away with some learning points. And just to
Yeah.
see, like, I have this wealth of knowledge from all the experience that I've had. It's like, I wonder how many other people could benefit from even just me talking with them about how I did things or how I would have done things better. Because if one person can take those stories away and not make the same mistakes that I have, then that's a victory in my head.
No, I think I remember talking to Matt Campbell, and he has, let's say, a similar story, but somewhat similar about some guy was asking him about a training plan or whatever, and he said, "Yeah, I could put something together," and
Yeah.
took off from there for him.
Yeah, and the other thing I'd add on that is it really channeled into like my banking career where like I
Huh.
already had some spreadsheets set up with running. It's like, no, we're gonna make this like very sophisticated. So creating like a library of different training plans, using different formulas to draw from those training plans based on people's
I'm sure you did.
a desired race, building a pace table, and then building like a like essentially a one page of like here's your 2 week schedule, here's recommended paces, and created some macros and automation to feed into an email. So I definitely went above and beyond from that perspective. So that propelled myself into this whole like coaching journey.
I think that these days you can just push that stuff into Claude or something like that, and it will give you all that. You just gotta tell it, and it builds it.
Yeah, absolutely.
The
Definitely didn't
formulas, it
have a
gives
lot
you
of that.
whatever you want.
Yeah.
Well, of
And
course, not
there's
back then
yeah.
they didn't have it.
Yeah, and there's apps now like Final Search, which is what I'm
Yeah.
using now, but of course, I was like I only had 1 or 2 people I was, like, coaching at the time. I'm not gonna pay money for an app when I can create something
Yeah.
from scratch on my own. Plus, I enjoyed it a little bit.
Well, I think you learned a lot. I think if you're actually doing it, you're probably learning what the best formula is and then the paces. I think you learn by doing in general. I think we all do.
Yeah.
So how many people are you coaching now?
Currently, I'm coaching 8 athletes now.
Okay.
I think I've probably coached probably over 20 historically. I've lost a little bit of count there. I tried to create like a almost like a repository of past athletes. But yeah, I wouldn't say this is something that I was thinking I was gonna do full time. It wasn't like an idea of, hey, once I hit 8 athletes, like it's enough money to be full time necessarily. But I know I'm quite jumping the gun a little bit on where this conversation is going a bit because we alluded to it a little bit with
Yeah.
my changing careers. But yeah, 8 athletes right now and currently finding opportunities to open the door for more.
You only, from what I can tell, $50 per person. I don't know if that changes, but you'd have to have a lot of athletes to make a career out of that.
Yeah.
So, at one time, I assume. But so let's do jump to that because now you're quitting a pretty good career, to go into a training director over at Fleet Feet. What is that like and how did that happen? What's going on? That's
Yeah.
exciting though. I'm pretty pumped for you. I'd love to
Yeah,
do
thank
something
you.
like that.
Thank you. No, I'm very excited too, and I really appreciate the support and I guess call it reception, if you will, from all my friends and the rest of the community. Hans has reached out. I've had lunch with him a
Awesome.
couple times now, and he's been nothing but supportive and talked to Matt numerous times. And I'd say he's probably my best friend in terms of in a one-to-one relationship from a
Yeah.
running side. We share a lot of ideas back and forth about growing the Dallas running community, not just the numbers, but like more of like how do we improve it? How do we think about collaborating on events like this mile race and
Yeah.
all that fun stuff? And really, the biggest thing for me was I was starting at Fleet Feet for part-time position as the same capacity as like a training program manager director. I've been asked to help with this idea of creating a new like training program and brand behind all the Fleet Feet Dallas stores. And it's really cool to be a
Yeah.
part of something that's different. So a lot of my coaching structure now will morph into that. I'll still have like my whole like 2Run4 website and brand, so to speak. Like it's going to be effectively be like my own like kind of blogging website where I actually looking at that now. I need to do a better job of staying abreast on my race recaps, but that's effectively what it will be now. It'll be like more of a launch page into this new like training program at Fleet Feet. And
Yeah.
we're not trying to take away from that by any means or try to build something new from a community perspective. I feel like community is almost like a very overused word at this point. And again, there's no knock on any run clubs or run
Yeah.
crews. My main run crew, Oak Cliff Running, they use that word all the time, and they fostered a really great community.
Yeah.
But when I think about my history and background with running, and when we were talking about like how we got into running, it was like, hey, I just wanted to lose weight. I just wanted to
Yeah.
be in better shape. Not once did we mention, oh, I want to go qualify for Boston, or did I want to go do a faster mile. None of it was performance based,
Not at
and
first.
not at first. And I think there's a lot of untapped potential that people have that they don't realize because we just don't have those same opportunities in the Dallas metro area. When I look at cities like Austin, like in Texas, or even like Chicago, New York, and Boston, yes, those are major cities with a lot of running opportunities. But just going back to Austin real quick, it's like even they have a lot more racing opportunities. They have the Zilker relays. They have tons of 5Ks and 10Ks. I have a friend down in Austin who leads a group called the Purple Dragons. They did a heat check mile where they just did loops around a road near a park. They're about to do another one. And the way I look at it is like, why can't we have something cool like that? And why
Just have
can't
to have
we?
somebody like you. But
Yeah. Also, like it's the whole analogy or saying a high tide raises all. But it's like if we can figure out a way to create a program that helps fuel performance and get people to push for their best, and also create opportunities for other run clubs and other members of the community to join and really push ourselves and through the partnership of other brands and see and let these brands know that,
yeah.
hey, like Dallas isn't just your normal like running club city where everyone's out here to do their social 5K. And again, nothing wrong with that. That's how a lot of people begin. But there's a real opportunity for people who desire races, desire something cool, something fun that's a little different than just going out there and doing a 5K. And again, fast is relative. Like we were talking about our mile times being a 5:10.
Yeah.
The pros, they'll run a 5:10 as part of standard long runner. Mans could probably do like
Exactly.
a whole marathon 5:10 and wake up the next day and do his real workout
Yeah.
if he really
Exactly.
wants. It's all relative. It's always interesting to me when people, man, like I don't know if I can show up to a track night. I don't know if I'm as fast as you guys. It's like that's not the point. The point is for you to get better every
Yeah.
day, for you to see those stories of improvement. And I'm not unique in my own progression in terms of pace. Like I've listened to many episodes and so many people you've talked to share the same thing. They start
Yeah.
at one point. Maybe they wanted to do the same thing. Maybe they wanted to lose weight, or maybe their first goal was to qualify for Boston. And now you have someone like Jennifer Pope who's ran in the Olympic trials, and she didn't have that same like cross country track background. I mean, she
I mean,
qualified
she
for
didn't start
Boston.
running until COVID, right?
And
So,
it's crazy, and it's
she's in
crazy,
her
but it's so
30s.
awesome to see.
How many fleet feets are in DFW area?
I should know the exact answer. My gut leans towards 7.
Okay.
There's one in Fort Worth. I know there's one in McKinney, Frisco, Plano, and that let's see what else is there. Well,
Sure,
there's
there's a
one on
couple in
Mockingbird,
Dallas.
there's one
There's
in
one.
Precedent
Yep.
Forest, so
That's the one
probably
I'm thinking.
6.
Okay.
I feel like I'm missing one.
And are you
We're
going to
gonna open
support
one
all
in
of
Denver.
those? Or is it just a specific area right now?
Technically, it's for the whole Metroplex, so all of
Okay.
the stores.
Well, that's exciting. That's a lot to do. And the positive, I think, on something like that is you have the backing of the store. You'll have vendors that are very excited and willing to help out and show up, shoe kind of folk, all kinds of different things. The marketing piece is, going to be your opportunity. And there's a lot of good marketing, I'm sure, that Fleet Feet knows about and that they'll do well. And it'd be fun to watch to see where that goes for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And all the conversation that we're having now, it's who knows where this is gonna take us as
Yeah.
not only just a brand, but also the whole city and Metroplex. Even though this could start out as just like a weekly training session, maybe we can do something similar to that or do something unique like what we're doing with the July 4th race, the 1776-yard race. It's kind of a fun race because it's not a mile, it's 0.009. Maybe we can do something fun and unique where and it's not just, hey, we're gonna do a 5K on a track and just
But it's
let it
basically a
rip.
mile.
It's a little bit over a mile, but it's fun though
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I think it'll help contextualize how far 0.009 of
I
a
agree.
mile is. It's actually, I think, close to. It's actually a good mile because I want to say it's a little bit over 10 meters, maybe 20 meters, something like that.
Okay. I saw that, but I wasn't thinking about it like that. But now you said it, I was like, oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah, because a mile is 1760 yards, so that's 16 more yards. If you think
So
about,
for those that don't know what
oh,
Farrell's
sorry,
talking about, there's a 1.009 mile run race ish against your own time on July 4th. And I'm not sure that this episode will come out before then. Pretty sure it won't, but because it's only like a week away. But Matt Campbell, so the slots, and then WRC, I think Javier is a big part of it, and stuff like that are sponsoring this race. Not again, it's not a race per se, but it's a your time. They're going to time you and all that stuff. And what you do is you put in a time that you think you're going to get, and whoever gets closest to their time that says that they're going to get. I don't know if you win get something or get something or whatever, but it's going to be really cool. It's just different. And so that's what you're talking about, right?
Yeah, that's right. And
Okay.
there'll be a few prizes for the people with the closest time. And that's a huge emphasis on that. It's not necessarily about having the fastest time, it's
Yeah.
who can get the closest to their guests. So a little different spin on it. So the prizes are a secret for now.
Okay.
Honestly, I don't know them, so I couldn't even tell you if I did. But I know Matt's cooking up something in the works, and I've got a few ideas and suggestions. So we'll announce those as the race results come out.
So is there something look, there's so much to cover, during some of these, and you had so much to talk. I had so much to ask you and talk about because you went from this marathon all the way or running all the way to becoming a coach, all the way now working at Fleet Feet and changing careers and things like that. Did I miss anything that you wish I would have talked about or asked that you're just dying to tell us?
Yeah, I'd say I'm a huge fan of what you're doing. I think this is something that's been
Thank you.
missed, and I didn't want to necessarily like just take this whole like remaining time period and like necessarily glow you up, but I think it's really cool what you're doing and having these conversations, especially with so. I know you've reached out to mostly your friends, but it just shows like how many cool stories there are, and it's only going to continue to grow. And I think very similar to that, whereas I feel like Dallas is a very hidden gem running
Yeah.
city, and there's so many cool stories because there's just so many different groups and cities and stories and perspectives that can be captured. And I think one of the things that I wish I had the opportunity to talk about more, because I could be on here for 3 hours and talk about everything under the sun with
Mhm.
running because I love it so much, and I can tell you do too. But I would say going back to that theme of like hidden stories is me being part of the Oak Cliff Run crew for the better part of the last 2 years and just seeing what they've been able to achieve. And yes, there's been some
I've seen
amazing
that
run
group.
clubs.
It looks like it's really growing like crazy.
It's massive. When I first started going to their runs back in summer of 2023, I want to say May, and there
Yeah.
was 40 people there. And it was a consistent 40 to 50 people,
Yeah.
which I thought back then, and you have to remember, like relative to COVID times when a lot of run clubs like struggled because we just couldn't meet due to the
Yeah.
circumstances, of course, you didn't have these consistent 40 to 50 like social run clubs. Like yes, Fawns and Pegasus, they were a big one, and so was the co-op. They're a big one in the Dallas
Yeah.
run crew. Let's call them staples, if you will. But
DRC,
for
stuff like
someone,
that.
yeah, and DRC, yeah. And I know I'm missing a lot. I'm not trying to be intentional about
It's
missing the bigger ones, but what I'm trying to emphasize is like there's 4 individuals who started this group in Oak Cliff, and they just started running together, and
yeah.
eventually became six, became a dozen, and
Just
then
come on
now,
up, run with me. Yeah.
yeah, 40, 50 person, and then all of a sudden in 2 years, now they're consistently getting hundreds of people out here. Like
It's
a down
crazy.
week is like 200 people.
Exactly. No, I think that so I have this website called dfwrunninggroup.com, and on that website is one of the things is running groups in the area. And I think I have 35 or 40 running groups. And I know I missed some of them, because that's one of the number one search terms in Dallas Fort Worth is from a running standpoint is people are looking for groups to run with. And so I think that there can't be enough because people now are regionalized. They don't want to drive so far away. Somebody from Frisco doesn't want to drive to Dallas, or even
Yeah,
somebody from Richardson doesn't necessarily want to drive to Dallas. They want to run in Richardson area or somewhere close, or Addison or whatever. And so you can do that nowadays, and you can use Facebook, you can use different things like that. And I think and what you guys are doing, what you're going to be doing, will be fun to watch and see how you're doing there. I think you're right. Oak Cliff is kicking butt,
yeah,
but there wasn't anything there, right? Oak Cliff
yeah,
was not
exactly.
close to anything, even in Dallas, and so it was ripe to bring that in. And they probably didn't even think it was going to have hundreds of people at first.
No,
Now it's like
absolutely not. And
the
I
opportunity's
think you,
huge.
yeah, I think you nailed it. Like, hey, just people didn't want to go all this way just to go run when you have a great area to run in, and
Yeah,
you have an amazing view of downtown as you run on the Jefferson Bridge going to the city. So why not take advantage of it? And just not only
exactly.
just seeing the growth in the number of people. One thing I do want to add about them is I like their perspective on running, where it's not only just about building that kind of community and that crew of getting people to show up, but it's also how do we do things our way and have fun doing it. So the
Yeah.
Dallas Marathon, they had a great cheer section out I was there at mile
That's
7
awesome.
as you made the turn onto to Lower Greenville. The Say Less relay that they raised a ton of great money for mental health awareness in May, where they ran from there was a group of 12 people. Mimi and Craig were a part of it.
Mm,
They did a team relay from Dallas to Austin. And then recently, the Are You Afraid of the Dark 4x1 mile relay on, what was it, Friday the 13th. And
yeah,
Matt Campbell's on the winning team. And that was a great way to bring that whole community into Oak Cliff and show them, hey, this is what we're here to offer. And we can do these cool
pretty
events.
cool.
We don't need to do, nothing needs to be like super official or super
Mm,
fancy. It's just you line up, lace it up, and you just go let it rip. Like it doesn't have to be this super complicated like branding or making a
yeah.
deal with somebody or doing all these things and getting all these trinkets and amenities. It's just no, just line up and race. Like just let's just go have fun with it.
I love it, man. I love it. Wow, it's a great. I love that you brought that up because I wouldn't even ask. And that running crew is doing some really cool things, and so maybe I'll talk to some of those guys. It'd be fun. Oh, Farrell, this was amazing. Our hour is already up. I generally have these about an hour or whatever, but we'll definitely see each other, I'm sure, on July 4th, and certainly looking forward to kind of. I don't know if that I'm your speed, but still we could get a run in two together. We're both in Dallas, so Richardson area. I live in Lake Highlands, so it's not that far from each other. So
Yeah, I might hop in for a pacer mile, so maybe I'll see you in one of those.
yeah, yeah. Thanks everyone for tuning in to another DFW Running Talk. I'm Chris Detzel. Please don't forget to rate and review us. It's very important. Also, please go follow our newsletter at dfwrunningtalk.substack.com. I'm Chris Detzel. Farrell, thanks again for coming.
Yeah, thanks, Chris.